all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by.
Melville, John Masefield.
Are you sure about that?
I am well versed in the classics, Doctor.
Then how come you don't know row, row, row your boat?
Welcome back for part 3 of Why I Love Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Be sure to check out parts 1 and 2 if you haven't already, and if you enjoy my content, be sure to subscribe. Now let's get started before Uhura starts doing a naked moon dance again.
What's that? Human females are so repulsive.
If you recall, these videos focus on individual scenes that I adore, rather than a review based on a linear plot summary. The next scene I will be covering is a combination of 2 separate scenes where Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are put in the brig after failing to prevent Sybok and his army from boarding the Enterprise. These scenes give us some of the best banter between the three, along with some hilarious lines. We also get to see the first toilet ever depicted on Star Trek. Good thing that toilet was not malfunctioning as bad as the rest of the ship. We also get to see more expletives than any previous Trek movie.
Damn it, Spock. God damn it.
Although not enough for it to be classified as a PG-13 film. You could even get away with a few F-bombs back then and still get a PG rating. As Kirk tears into Spock for not shooting Sybok when he had the chance, Spock attempts to pacify Kirk, stating he does not expect Kirk to forgive him. Kirk fires back,
Forgive you, I'll knock you on your goddamn ass.
to which Bones hilariously asks,
You want me to hold him, Jim?
You stay out of this.
Spock then tries to explain to Kirk that Sybok is his brother, specifically his half-brother, through his father Sarek and a Vulcan princess. While some criticize the fact that this is the only mention of royal families on Vulcan, it does seem plausible that even Vulcans could retain aristocratic titles, if only as an honorific. I think more criticism is warranted for Sybok being forced in as Spock's sibling. The script attempts to justify this when Kirk asks Spock why he never mentioned Sybok until now. Spock replies,
I was not disposed to discuss matters of a personal nature.
While the trope of having family drama in the form of 2 close family members opposing each other goes back to ancient times, it was already beginning to overstay its welcome in blockbuster films by the time The Final Frontier was released. So many films and TV shows wanted to exploit the impact that Star Wars had on its fans by having a family member do some evil, only to realize his or her mistakes and sins, and earning redemption, usually by giving their life to save their loved ones. This is the arc that Sybok has in The Final Frontier, and one of the criticisms I do have with the film. A more original origin, arc, and conclusion to Sybok's character could have improved the film. After a brief scene where Sybok is seen taking over the bridge of the Enterprise, we return to the brig where Kirk is attempting to find a way to escape, perched atop Spock's shoulders. Boy, try saying that fast 10 times. As Kirk attempts to remove some pipes or something from the ceiling, Spock cautions him using words that perfectly describe my videos.
Useless. Unwise.
As Kirk gets nearly electrocuted, Spock informs Kirk that the new brig is escape-proof, Starfleet having tested it using its most intelligent and resourceful person. Kirk hilariously asks Spock if the test subject had pointed ears and
An unerring capacity for getting his shipmates into trouble, did he?
to which Spock dryly replies,
He did have pointed ears.
After Sybok addresses the crew of the Enterprise, revealing his goal to be
the discovery of Shakari,
which he states is at the center of the galaxy. Kirk is troubled at this, stating that nothing has ever returned after entering the Great Barrier, implying that Sybok is leading them all into certain death. When Spock apparently attempts to give Kirk some hope that Sybok is not some madman with a death wish, Kirk retorts back,
Spock, my only concern is getting the ship back. When that's done and Sybok is in here, then you can debate Shakari until you're green in the face.
As if to test Spock's loyalty to him, Kirk then follows with,
Until then, you're either with me or you're not.
Which Spock, with a hint of repressed hurt feelings, says,
I am here, Captain.
Kirk replies,
It's a little vague, Spock.
And Shatner does a good job of expressing Kirk's pain and disappointment of Spock not being more assertive in his loyalty. Kirk then notices a tapping noise coming from the rear wall of the brig, which Spock recognizes as Morse code. As the trio decodes the message, they realize that they are being told to
Stand back.
A small explosion blows open a hole in the wall, and Scotty emerges, speaking one of the best lines of the movie.
What are you standing around for? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one?
Which concludes the scenes in the brig. Like most of my favorite moments from this film, these brig scenes give us some of the best moments between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. The next scene I want to discuss is my absolute all-time favorite scene in all of Star Trek. We see a cloaked figure approach the bar at the Mos Eisley canteen. Hey, back that up, Steve. Okay, let's try that again. We see a cloaked figure approach a bar where the bartender looks like Divine after way too much Romulan L and Trillium D.
It is revolting.
Then we get the money shot. The most glorious, intelligent, thought-provoking, inspiring, Citizen Kane level shot in all of Star Trek.
What the hell is he?
Okay, so enough joking. Let's look at the next scene. A scene that really does elevate this film, and gives one of my favorite Trek actors time to really show off his acting chops. After Kirk, Spock, and McCoy escape the brig, they manage to make their way to the forward observation lounge so they can send out a distress call to Starfleet. Might I add that I love the design of this lounge. The nautical-style helm, adorned with a plaque that quotes the famous closing lines of the original series opening narration, and the mostly wooden construction seem a wonderful fit for the observation lounge of the Enterprise, as Star Trek has, more often than not, maintained a Navy-esque approach to their starships and interstellar adventures. We saw such earlier when Kirk quoted a nautical poem, and how a Klingon captain uses a submarine-style periscope to target the weapons of the bird of prey. When Sybok once again captures Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, he attempts to convince them to join his quest to find Shakari. As Kirk questions Sybok, asking him how he can control people, Sybok states,
I don't control minds. I free them.
When McCoy asks how, Sybok answers,
By making you face your pain and draw strength from it. Once that's done, fear cannot stop you.
As McCoy dismisses Sybok's answer as some type of brainwashing, Sybok claims that McCoy's pain is the deepest. As Sybok begins to use his powers on McCoy, the background morphs into a hospital room where McCoy's father lays on a bed, old and sick with a terminal condition. As McCoy protests having to face this moment from his past, he painfully begs,
Oh my God, don't do this to me.
What follows is some of the best acting DeForest Kelley has ever given as Dr. McCoy. Kelley even stated that he was appreciative of how much Shatner gave McCoy to do in this film, including scenes like this. As McCoy's father frailly begs his son to stop the pain, we get this interaction.
I can't stand the pain. Help me.
All my knowledge, and I can't save him.
McCoy's father then asks his son to release him. We see McCoy battle between keeping his father alive and knowing that doing so seems to only prolong his suffering. We see McCoy use a device to override and terminate the life support on his father's bed. As McCoy watches his father's life fade, we see a shadow pass over his father's face, symbolizing both death and the darkness McCoy associates with his decision to euthanize his father. As Sybok asks McCoy why he did this, McCoy responds,
To preserve his dignity.
his answer's delivery revealing much uncertainty as to whether or not it was enough to justify such an action. Sybok then leads McCoy to the most painful part of McCoy's decision to let his father die, getting McCoy to admit that a cure was discovered shortly after his father's death. This, of course, makes McCoy further doubt whether or not he did the right thing, causing more anguish in his soul.
Then you did what you thought was right.
Yes. No.
Yes, release this pain. Release it.
It makes sense that McCoy would be the most likely of the main trio to succumb to Cybok's manipulation because, as I stated before, McCoy usually represents emotion and the other illogical aspects of humanity. I'm glad that McCoy is able to override Cybok's influence enough to stand with Kirk and Spock, as having McCoy betray Kirk and even Spock would have greatly soured his character's legacy. This scene does give us a unique insight into the character of Dr. Leonard McCoy, as well as standing as one of the best performances by DeForest Kelley. I do wish the overall film had more scenes like this one, instead of ones like this. But hey, at least Shatner did not go full-on vanity project with this film and include a scene of him performing one of his songs in it.
Somebody calls you, you answer quite slowly.
A girl! What in blazes is this?